Good evening, everybody, and you're very welcome here to the second of our JCT webinars for teachers allocated management resource hours for junior cycle. This is taking place on Wednesday, the 5th of December. We'll also have this recorded tonight and available on our website if anyone would like to look back at it over the coming days and weeks, and for anyone who can't make the live broadcast tonight. You're very welcome. My name is Enda Byrne, one of the regional leaders with Junior Cycle. I'm joined by some of my colleagues tonight from the whole school team who'll be here to answer your questions throughout the course of the evening. So at any stage, if there is a question you might have around anything related to Junior Cycle or anything you're unsure of in the broadcast tonight, please do type it into the question tab on your own GoToWebinar screen. We'll endeavour to get back to you with an answer quickly. Just be mindful, we do have a lot of people. It might take us a little while to get back to you with an answer, but you're very welcome, and I do hope you find this evening's webinar useful in your work. So I suppose just to start off, to check in with where Junior Cycle comes from and really what impacts on our work as teachers with management resource hours in schools at the moment. Of course, it all stems from the Framework for Junior Cycle 2015. And a lot of the publications we'll talk about tonight really have to be loyal to the message of Framework for Junior Cycle 2015. And this document really outlined 7 or 8 key messages of what the department would like to have achieved from the revisions to Junior Cycle in Ireland at post-primary level. You'll see them transitioning in onto the screen here. The first one is important, the flexible program for student learning. And that idea of flexibility is something we'll go back to time and time again tonight, with a lot of how we approach putting our program of study together, how we approach scheduling our SLAR meetings, how we might approach doing our assessment tasks and producing our junior cycle profile of achievements. This idea of allowing flexibility for the school to approach student learning as best suits their own context. The balance between knowledge and skills, the dual approach to assessment. So tonight, hopefully, we'll get a bit more clarity around the classroom-based assessments, the assessment task, and the state certified exam. These will be happening in our schools this year. We've some information around timelines and processes that will allow those different parts of the dual approach to assessment to happen within our schools. Reporting, a broader picture of learning. Really, that's very pertinent at this time of the year, as in our schools we're looking now towards producing our junior cycle profile of achievement and distributing them to last year's third years before we go on our Christmas holidays in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll have a lot of information tonight around the production of the junior cycle profile of achievement, what that will look like and what our role might be in that. Professional collaboration between teachers. Again, that's where the SLAR meeting comes from, the subject learning and assessment review meeting. So we've some information from the new circular letter and from the assessment guidelines for subjects around the SLAR meetings and the role of the people with management resource hours in that as well. Supporting continuity and that idea of the greater autonomy for what young people will learn, but greater autonomy for schools to structure this junior cycle in a way that will make sense in our own context within our own school up and down the country. I suppose just no harm to maybe start by checking in with where junior cycle rollout is at this year 2018-19. So we've come a long ways from when we start this 2014-15. So we're 4 or 5 years down the line now of junior cycle rollout. The first subject, of course, to come in was English. So what's happening for our English subject this year in 2018-19? English is being taught in all 3 years now of junior cycle. There will be a CBA in English in second year. There will also be a CBA in English in third year. The assessment task for English in third year still has to take place in all our schools. And the final examination in third year, all our schools are preparing for that to happen in June of 2019. Of course, that will be the third time now that the new English specification has been examined. There's new stuff also happening in our second year, in our third year classrooms this year for the first time ever. This has never happened in the third year classrooms before. For the first time ever now, we have a new science and business studies specification being taught not only in third year, but in all years of junior cycle. In these two subjects, there will be a classroom-based assessment in second year. This has happened before. It happened last year. What is new is that there will be, for the first time ever, a classroom-based assessment in third year. The first ever assessment task in science and business studies is about to happen in all our schools up and down the country. And teachers of these subjects are preparing for the first ever final examination that will examine the new specification in science and business studies. So really, in this green box, this is what's happening for this year's third years for the first time ever. If we look at the phase 3 subjects here in our orange box, this is really what's happening for the first time in second year. This orange box, I suppose, is what's new in the second year classroom. These are the subjects that are being taught in the second year classroom currently: Irish, modern languages, and art, craft and design. The specification, as I said, is being planned for and taught in first and second year. And the first CBA will happen in some of these subjects now in second year. Our teachers of the foreign languages and teachers of art, craft and design are preparing to do the first ever classroom-based assessment in these subjects in the second year classroom. In Irish, of course, is the only subject that doesn't have a classroom-based assessment in second year. The first Irish classroom-based assessment will happen in third year. Both classroom-based assessments in Irish happen in third year. So that will be something, of course, that the Irish teachers will be working towards, however, with their second year students this year. Phase 4 here, this red box, this is what's happening in first year for the first time ever this year. We have a new specification for maths, home economics, history, music and geography. So in our first year classrooms, teachers are planning and teaching the new specification in these subjects for the first time. They'll be looking to next year when our first years become our second years. That is when these subjects will have to start planning for classroom-based assessments. No classroom-based assessments in these subjects for the 2018-19 school year. And the last of our phased rollout, these are the last cohort of subjects to make their way into our classrooms. So these will only come in for next year's first years in September 2019. The 4 technology subjects, namely what would have been called woodwork, metalwork, technology and technical graphics. There has been some slight renaming there of some of those subjects, but that's what we would have called them in junior certificate. Religious education, if your school happens to take it for the state examination in June. Jewish studies and classics. Again, this only coming in next September, but teachers of these subjects will be able to attend a workshop on their cluster day with JCT, which you may have had already in some of your schools, or which you're looking towards happening between now and April, depending on which school you teach in. The key thing for this evening, I suppose, is your questions as they might arise. Please do type in any questions you might have. We've built in a number of pause moments into the webinar, where one of my colleagues here who's with me will respond to, I suppose, the most common questions. We won't be responding to every question verbally, but I'm sure there will be recurring questions. We'll take a time to stop and respond to those questions throughout the webinar. So, I suppose the big publication of recent weeks, or one of them, that has an impact on work that individuals like yourself listening to this webinar, who might have be allocated management resource hours for junior cycle, is Circular Letter 79/2018. And we can see here that this is taken from the cover of it. It's the arrangements for the implementation of the framework for junior cycle, with particular reference to school year 2018-19. What I have done is embedded a link into this PowerPoint. That won't work on your webinar tonight, but what it will work on is when the PowerPoint is on the website, you can just click the link. Of course, you can just Google or put into any search engine, Circular Letter 79/2018. It's also available on education.ie in the circular letter section. Some very useful information in this particular circular letter we're going to look at over the course of the evening is the implications it has on our work as individuals assigned management resource hours for junior cycle. So management resource hours, what are they, I suppose, first of all, because that really, this webinar is aimed at people who might have been assigned these particular hours, and they are extra hours allocated to schools, which schools will draw down through their substitution through the online claim system. They're on an interim basis pending the restoration of leadership posts in schools. It's in recognition of the fact that junior cycle is a large reform, the biggest reform at post-primary level in the history of the state. And there's a lot of work in it for everybody. There certainly is work in it for school leaders and principals as well. So these hours have been put into the system to take some of that work off a busy principal's desk that they can assign to a teacher within their school to do some of this work. So it would be time where that teacher would have in the past been teaching classes. Now they are freed up from class to undertake some of this extra work to support school leadership in the administration of junior cycle. On an interim basis, because what we get asked a lot from time to time is, will these hours be around next year? I suppose first thing we can say is that this circular letter only deals with this school year, but this language is just cut and paste from the circular. It's very clear. It's on an interim basis pending the restoration of leadership posts in schools. These hours will not be around forever, and very much schools are to consider building the work around junior cycle into leadership posts as they get restored into their schools. Section 3.6 of this circular letter really gives good guidance around that question we get asked a lot. What's my role? What job should I be doing if I have these hours? What's my role here? And it says some or all of these activities may be included. Supporting the leadership team with planning, communication and organising substitution for teachers attending in service with us here in Junior Cycle for Teachers. We're going to look a little bit more about what that looks like. What should I have done already to make this happen? Or what jobs might there be there that need to happen over the course of the year ahead? Scheduling of the in-school CPD events and liaising with JCT in planning visits. Overseeing the scheduling of the SLAR meetings, the subject learning and assessment review meetings. So there is a role there in overseeing the scheduling of those. Liaising with the coordinators of those SLAR meetings. Overseeing the new classroom-based assessment reporting procedures for subjects, for level 2 learning programs, level 1 learning programs and short courses, those optional programs that a school may offer. So your school may be offering those, or then again it might not, to oversee the reporting procedures there. Organising administration of the assessment tasks and making the necessary arrangements for returning the assessment task to the SEC. So again, with each of these bullet points, we're really going to tease out what's involved there, what needs to happen, what needs to be on my to-do list as a person with management resource hours, and what, I suppose, going back into school tomorrow to have in our mind what needs to happen right now, or what needs to happen a little bit further down the line to put a bit of a timeline on it for ourselves as well. Again, they're all from the circular letter 79/2018. Okay, so as I said, we're going to go through each of those bullet points one by one. I'm starting with the first one that was on the list there, which is on our screen, supporting the principal or deputy with planning, communication and organising for attending in service. The first go-to place is jctregistration.ie. I'm sure most of us are familiar with this. This is the portal through which we will register up our teachers to attend in service. This is a screen grab of what the homepage looks like, and the address of the website is on the top of the screen. Your username is your own school's roll number. And a password would have been provided to your school by letter to allow us to access JCT registration. If at any time you mislay your password or forget it, there is an option, you'll see it there, to resend the password underneath the submit button. So that option is there as well. And it's within this portal that we will register up teachers to attend their cluster day. I suppose a number of things that are important with this portal for people like yourselves whose job it is to maintain it is to update details to reflect any staff changes regularly. And please ensure you have an up-to-date CPD contact email. Our administration staff have really asked me to put that one at the top of the list, because that's how most communications will come to your school going forward. So please make sure that CPD contact email is up to date with the email address you would most like all correspondence to come to, because that's the address they will use. It's through this portal as well that you will find out vital information about your school cluster day, that it is your role to communicate to staff within your school. Things like the cluster details, the dates, the venues of where the events might be taking place. This won't be populated until 5 days before your scheduled date. No need to ring us, no need to email us. It will all be there in JCT registration, but it will not be there until 5 days before your scheduled date. The reason it can't be there until that time is we need to give a deadline for people to have their lists up to date. So what will be happening during that time in your own school is that you'll be checking that you've every teacher accounted for your cluster, and you can make changes up to 4 days before it. So a change might be where my colleague had said she wanted to go to English, but lo and behold, now she wishes to go to history. We can do that, no problem, and that change you can make in JCT registration until 4 days before the event. Check for any CPD requirements, such as a laptop. Music, for example, will ask them to bring a musical instrument. Again, all this information will be on the list of workshops for your cluster day in JCT registration. Really then to think about how you are going to communicate this information in the usual fashion to teachers in your school. Again, this will happen 5 days before the cluster date. So I know some schools just print it all off and put it up on the notice board in the staff room. It's then my job as a teacher to go and find out from that list where I need, what school I need to go to. Is it room 4 in that school, or room 7 in some other school? Is it in the education centre? Is it in a hotel? That'll all be on the list. I need to make a note of that. So where's the location and what's the start time for the workshop I'm going to? Some schools might generate a document and email it to all teachers. You might be in a school where over lunchtime you could tell people face to face, or during a staff meeting you could take 10 minutes to read through the list. You know your own school, you know how normally this information would be communicated, you know what would be most effective for your own teachers. There's flexibility here, but just once people know where they are to go for their cluster day. Student teachers in your school, PMEs, they can now be registered online for your cluster, but this facility will only be available 4 weeks before the cluster date. The reason being that we'll have a better idea of attendance numbers for the workshops and if there is space for PMEs, because first of all we need to accommodate practicing teachers, and then if there is space in a workshop, no more than if there's space in a class in a school, we can certainly take a PME in and give them a space. That'll be done through JCT registration also. And again, we have a screen grab of what you'll see when you log into the portal. This is the home screen. You'll see the blue box on top for registering your teaching colleagues and assigning them to subject workshops. You'll need their teaching council number, their first and last name. You can search the teaching council register, and if they can't locate their number sometimes or are not aware of it, you can find it for them on the register. The PME registration, the orange box here, obviously our colleagues PMEs don't have a number yet. We just need their first and last name, and that way we can just have them registered without the need for a teaching council number. That would have been the big issue with the database in years gone by, where in the past you might have had to ring up to register them. We've got around that now with the software. You don't need the teaching council number to register them. So I suppose really continue to update the classroom teacher details on the portal. And only teachers who wish to attend a workshop should be registered. So we don't need to know about teachers who are not currently in your school teaching classes. So if they are on career break, any sort of leave, if they are for whatever reason not teaching right now this year, we don't need them on the register. It's just for us to organise numbers for workshops. You can of course add that colleague in when they return from their maternity leave or their career break or whatever it might be. The date for the subject cluster day, you all have that in your schools and have had it for a long time. It was sent by letter in September. But of course, you can consult it in your portal in JCT registration by logging in. That letter would have been addressed to the principal of the school. And we can't, I suppose, stress this enough, to regularly remove any teachers who've left your school or are on leave of any form from the register. And to remember to add any teachers who join the staff during the academic year. I suppose schools are fluid places. A person might take up their leave at any time during the year, and we have a new colleague with who might wish to attend a different workshop maybe. So just to keep an eye on that as well. So what about colleagues that teach more than one subject? JCT will offer second subject CPD within junior cycle. And these will run from September to November of 2019, because obviously the staff who are out delivering the cluster days can only do one job at once. And when they finish delivering all the cluster workshops, they can then regroup and re-deliver those workshops when the first job of work is done. And that'll happen September to November 2019, because the clusters run until April. May, of course, is such a busy month, no CPD happens. So it'll be September, November 2019. Substitution will be funded by the the DES, the Department of Education. So this will be a model that we would be familiar with in the past, where we would attend a workshop in the local education centre, and the funding to pay a substitute will be provided to allow the teacher to attend a workshop for their second subject. These will be a rerun of the workshops that happen during the cluster. So if you have gone to English during the cluster, you do not need to re-attend. It's the same workshop. If you've gone to business studies, again, you do not need to it is not a new workshop, it's just a repeat. It will address every subject, will be rerun. We will also run a workshop on the CSPE short course, a workshop on the SPHE short course, and a workshop on the PE short course also. We're not too worried about registering people right now for events next September. This isn't top of our list at the moment. You'll get plenty of notice when to do it. It'll be in the next spring. Again, you'll get plenty of notice and support in registering up your teachers for second subject. It's just if you're asked, what about me? I teach 2 subjects. There is a plan in place, and this is what it looks like. I suppose 2 very important websites for teachers to be familiar with before their cluster day, because they really will get a lot more value from the workshop if they have taken the time to read their subject specification, and if they're available, the related assessment guidelines. Both of those are found on curriculumonline.ie, the NCCA website. Also, any CPD supports, such as workshops from years gone by, supports around planning and assessment, they can be found in the subject section of our own website, jct.ie. So that's, I suppose, the first of the bullet points, liaising with the scheduling and registering up of people for CPD. The second bullet point the circular mentions is the scheduling of in-school CPD events and liaising with JCT and the planning visits. So this is your in-school whole staff CPD day and planning visits relating to the same. I suppose your first person to call is your relevant regional leader. This poster would have been sent to all schools at the beginning of the year, and I think most schools have a good working relationship with their JCT regional leader, so they would be your first point of contact. All contact details are on that poster. If you're calling, leave a voicemail. Be sure to leave a mobile number, or perhaps to email can often be the quickest way if you're looking for a quick response. Maybe email is a better way to get a quick turnaround to a question. Currently, we're rolling out our whole school days for this year. A lot of your schools would have maybe had your whole school day already. The rest of you might be waiting to have it perhaps in the new year. Then we will look at working with schools to schedule your whole school day for next year, for the 2019-2020 school year. So JCT regional leaders and advisors will be available to meet with you and your principal, or whoever your principal may see fit, to really put a context on that day for your school, to look at any questions or queries you might have around junior cycle, and to put a plan in place for a date and a schedule for that whole school day in 2019-2020. We'll be in touch to arrange this in spring 2019. Again, it's not really top of our list right now. We've a lot to get through before we start looking at next year, but suffice to say we'll be in touch in the spring to arrange these planning visits. And we will endeavour to meet all requests subject to capacity. Just again, I think most of you are familiar now with how our whole school CPD day works, but just a reminder that the first important thing, I suppose, is that Monaghan Education Centre will courier a box of resources to your school. Please do keep these safe, and you might pass them on to the facilitator of the workshop at 8 a.m. on the morning of the CPD. You might just drop an email to your regional leader 2 days before your event just to confirm the resources have arrived. Sometimes they can get delayed with the courier, sometimes they can get mislaid in the school. So just to check they're there. If not, we can bring extra with us. Just once we know, we can prepare for it. The whole school CPD day, it's important that it's arranged in groups. So really this CPD has to model what the junior cycle classroom looks like. So please see that the room is laid out to accommodate groups of 4 working together. A large room is required. There is some moving around. We want people to be comfortable and have room to move around freely. So I suppose a large, comfortable room for people to engage as a CPD would be desirable. You will receive an email from us well in advance of that day with any specific requirements. So again, the email it gives good guidance around the setting up of the whole school CPD day. This again, it will all be in the email, but things like a screen and data projector, a set of speakers, just to check that they are working for us, because sometimes it can be sound, might be the issue that lets us down. And please advise us if your school uses Apple TV so we can plan accordingly. A flip chart stand if you might have one in your school, and if you could please have the Wi-Fi code available, because some of the activities will require Wi-Fi both for the teachers who are taking part in the workshop but also for the JCT facilitators. So the whole school CPD day, it's a full school day, up to 6 hours of a day, 1 day per year, per academic year. So to be very clear on this, Circular Letter 79/2018 allows every school to close for 2 days per year. 1 day is the whole school CPD day, which can be facilitated by JCT. The second day is your cluster subject day. There is not a third or fourth or fifth closure day for junior cycle. It's just 2, because that does confuse people. They wonder, is there more days? No, it's 2 maximum. All teachers, the principal, deputy, the special need assistants and the PME students, everyone's invited to attend. So it is a day for our whole staff. So often we'd have people asking, can the SNAs come? Can the PME come? They're very welcome. Everyone is welcome. It is a day for your whole staff in your school. And the day is delivered by teams from JCT. Generally, a lot of our people are practicing teachers in schools, just like all of you listening tonight. So it's really good. The conversations are quite rich because they're related back all the time to what is happening in our classrooms. During the day, there will be opportunities to gather and collate evidence that might feed into your school self-evaluation process. So again, we try and leave you at the end of that day with work done rather than leaving you with a list of work to do. So we'll give you opportunities to maybe further your school self-evaluation throughout this day. Again, all of this will be discussed in the planning visits, which will come up later in the year. Okay, at this point I'm going to pause and reflect. I'm going to be joined by one of my colleagues who will just look at some of the common questions that have been coming up so far in the webinar. So if you could just hold for one moment, we're going to swap over presenters and we'll have a look at what questions have been coming up. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stefan O'Coolan. I'm one of Indus colleagues in the whole school area, and I'm just going to address one of the common areas or common questions that came up. From next week, Monday next week, the partially complete, what's called a partially complete JCPA will be available to schools to download. This must be downloaded and the other areas of learning entered into the relevant box. Now, just bear in mind that 150 words or approximately 750 characters is the maximum that can be used to record other areas of learning achieved or experienced by students over the 3 years. If you're in a Gael college, as many of our schools are, you're further challenged because if you use Shima Fadas, Marhamsa, you are going to be limited and use some of your characters, so be aware of that. Also, it's advised not to use bullet points, etc., in what would be deemed appropriate to have saved in a Word document at this point, and to have, to have ready to cut and paste into the document. The partially complete JCPA is once downloaded and the relevant information put in by the school is then saved and printed so that it can be presented to the students, and it's envisaged that presentation will happen in the first term, so that means before Christmas basically, if that's manageable in schools. Also, it's advised that it's necessary for schools to keep a record of that JCPA in schools, and the circular refers to 7 years beyond the age of maturity. So ultimately, that's when the students are 25, maturity is at 18, 7 years from there is 25. So you're talking about roughly 10 years. So that has to be held in a safe place for future reference for approximately 10 years by the school. So it's very important to make a copy of that, save it digitally or in hard copy for reference into the future. So that's the JCPA. I suppose another question that we got is why the time is so, why is it so late and why is the time so short? Well, the process for appeals, as you're aware, on the 15th September, approximately middle of September each year, what's called provisional results from the state examinations come to schools, and then they're engage in an appeals process, or they're subject to an appeals process, which takes a number of weeks. And the next Monday is the earliest date after which that appeals process is complete, and with due time and due space for the system to be checked and a sample of the product, the product to be checked. So they take, I think, about 10% and cross-check the results from the SEC that they've been populated correctly into each student's number, etc., before they forward to schools. So that's the time scale that's involved there, and why that's as long as it is. Okay, so that's the JCPA. That's the most common question.
Okay, thanks, Stefan. Again, I think a lot of those questions you'll see them coming up in the webinar, but good to check in with people's thoughts there. And I think that was very clear. But again, we will deal with a lot more of that as we go through the rest of the webinar as well. Okay, so the next bullet point in the circular is the overseeing the scheduling of SLAR meetings. So let's have a little look at what that's about, and also liaising with the coordinators of SLAR meetings within your own schools from Circular Letter 79. So again, I suppose when we're talking about anything, it's no harm to give people a definition of what it is, and this is from the framework for Junior Cycle 2015. The SLAR meeting, what is it? It's a collaborative meeting of teachers to ensure a common understanding of the quality of student learning and quality assure the assessment of student work. Generally, one of these will happen in every subject in second year, and generally one will happen in third year. There is an exception in Irish to that. I suppose the first thing to flag in Circular Letter 79/2018 is that the key dates for classroom-based assessments in this school year have changed. The time bands have been broadened. So very simply, if you're working to the original NCCA timeline for CBAs, that's still valid and you can work to those, no problem. The reason they've broadened the windows is really coming from feedback from teachers and schools we've been in, saying that they felt under pressure and stressed, and it was to get it done would be challenging. It might have an impact on extracurricular matches. So the windows are being broadened. This is very positive and really has come from what teachers have requested. But of course, you can work to the original windows that were there from the start of the year, because they're still within these broader timelines anyway. So it just gives that flexibility if you feel it would be needed or helpful in your own school. Again, these are just from Circular Letter 79/2018. They've been out now for a couple of weeks. And these are the revised windows or dates for your second year students in your school. The window for students to complete their first CBA, so these are our second years in class right now. The windows for the English, the science, the business studies, visual art and modern foreign languages can happen over a window of time there from any time from the 7th of January right up until the end of the year. So the whole second half of the year to fit it in. Much broader than what it was, a very defined, maybe 3 or 4 week period. So it's a 3-week period within that time frame. The latest date for the award of the provisional descriptor from the SLAR, so that's our exceptional or above expectations, in line with expectations, is the 22nd of May. And the latest date to do the SLAR meeting is the 27th of May. So again, great flexibility here that wasn't there before this circular letter, to allow us to plan for and timetable firstly our classroom-based assessment window, and then when we might have our SLAR meeting. Similarly, they have revised and broadened the windows for when the third year CBA might happen. For this year, the subjects, the only ones affected this year, are English, science and business studies. Again, they've been broadened out, so your school might already be working on the science and or business studies one in third year. My apologies. But we can fit that in any time now up until the St. Patrick's weekend. Similarly, the latest date for English, where they must have submitted the collection of texts, is the Friday there of the St. Patrick's weekend, the 15th of March. The latest date for the completion of the assessment task is the 22nd of March. I had an email question today, is that set in stone? Yes, it's the latest date, set in stone. 22nd of March is the last date an assessment task can be done, then it's finished. The latest date for the provisional descriptor to be awarded is the 5th of April, and the latest date for the SLAR meeting is the 12th of April. So again, they're from Circular Letter 79/2018. The circular gives us guidance around the gap we should leave. So if we do our classroom-based assessment over these 3 weeks, how soon after do we have to do the SLAR meeting? Circular is very clear on this. No more than a month after the completion of the CBA. So if we finish the CBA this Friday, count forward 4 weeks, we have to have the SLAR meeting somewhere for 2 hours within that 4-week period. So we have the flexibility of a month to timetable our 2-hour SLAR meeting. So I suppose for teachers who might be new to the SLAR process, we do have some guidance around what can I do to get ready for it. The NCCA have made some very good guidelines around it, and we really would encourage all teachers to read and become familiar with the NCCA guidelines on SLAR meetings. The link is embedded in this PowerPoint here. If you're looking at the PowerPoint on the website, it's available on the NCCA's own website under the SLAR meeting guidelines in the section for assessment, or of course you could just put into your internet search engine NCCA guidelines on SLAR meetings. So numerous ways you can find that. Ensure subject teachers are, I suppose, familiar with them. I suppose in your school, have you nominated for this year? You need to have nominated a SLAR facilitator for English, one of your English teachers, one of your business studies teachers, one of your science teachers, your modern foreign languages and your visual art. So has that happened? Do we know who they are? As regards the modern foreign languages, We need to have a SLAR meeting separately for each foreign language. So of course we'll need a SLAR facilitator for each of the languages. That is to say, we'll need a SLAR for French if our school teaches it, and a facilitator. We'll need a separate SLAR for German if it's on offer in our school, and a facilitator. A separate one for Italian with its own facilitator, and similarly for Spanish. Of course, your school will teach combinations of those depending on your own context. This is important. Number 4, JCT will run a workshop on SLAR facilitation for subjects that are new to the process. That's namely those foreign languages, Gaeilge, who need to be getting ready for this now in 3rd year, and visual art. They'll be offered in spring 2019. Remember back to earlier where I said have your CPD contact email up to date, because if that's up to date, you'll get all information very timely around everything from JCT. So as regards the coordinating of the SLAR meeting, you know, as the management resource hours person, have your subject departments decided on a date, a time and venue for their SLAR. How does your school work? Do we need to book a room? Are we going to have it in a classroom? Is there anything we need for it? Do we need a data projector? Do we need a computer? So again, there's a little bit there depending on your own school of coordinating that the SLAR can take place not more than a month after the completion of the CBA. As I said there, what requirements might they have around equipment and so on? And then following the subject learning and assessment review meeting, the facilitators report. So there's going to be a number of facilitator reports because we'll have them now after all of these SLAR meetings. And these facilitator reports need to be stored and submitted to the school principal. How are you doing that in your own school? Is it going to be in a lever arch file in the principal's office? Is it in a folder in the staff room? Is it online using a Google Drive or a Dropbox? So again, have you taught that through in your school? Where are we storing our facilitator reports? Who has to give it to who? Is there a role there for you as the management resource person to collect these up and put them in the folder? Again, flagging that's something again to be thought about at school level. We just added this in here because it is a change in the English assessment guidelines, because the question we get a lot around the recording of in the languages where they have to do an oral communication, and we're encouraged to video them if possible so we can look back on it on the SLAR meeting. And often asked, do we need to buy camcorders? Where will we get the money to buy these big expensive camcorders? Very much any device will work that is a school device. A school laptop with a webcam hooked up to it. A school tablet, you might well be in an iPad school, that's fine. A mobile phone. So I've heard of schools buying a smartphone and just using that to record, you know, a cheap device. I heard of one school where they asked parents had they any old smartphones, and they got actually a class set of mobile phones, restored them to factory settings before they got them, and were using them, donated by parents. So again, this doesn't have to be something big and expensive if we can think a little bit creatively about it. But anything can be used. Once it's a school device, please don't use a personal device. There's child protection issues there, using your own personal device to take any sort of videos of pupils. So it must be a school device. Be mindful, as I said, of the child protection guidelines. Also should happen in line with your own school's acceptable use and your own school's data protection policy. So do be mindful of those. Okay, so I suppose we have just another pause and reflect moment here where we're just going to check in with the people manning the question lines if we have anything that's been added to our sort of commonly asked questions. So that'll just take us a moment to set up. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Hazel Hannon here, Whole School West Region. Just queries coming in around the other areas of learning. So schools are encouraged to record between 3 and 5 other areas of learning on the JCPA. So there are opportunities certainly for students to engage with the key skills and with the wellbeing indicators when recording this piece. And perhaps there might be an opportunity, for example, in an SPHE class for students to be guided through a reflection in this area. So that is one of the questions that's come up here commonly around the other areas of learning for students.
Okay, thank you, Hazel, for that. Again, we have a section coming up, hopefully, to give more clarity on that as well for the last part of this webinar. So overseeing the new classroom-based assessment reporting procedure. So how are we going to report on this to parents and guardians? I suppose quite a long piece we've taken from the circular letter here, that reporting will be formal and informal throughout first and second year, culminating in the junior cycle profile of achievement, which us as a school will issue within the calendar year of the examination. So really we have to have issued our junior cycle profile of achievement in the coming weeks. This window here now, this December window, is the time where all our schools are downloading, populating and sending home junior cycle profile of achievements. And that will be the case going forward. So this is the time of year for it, complementing reporting that already might happen in our school. But also we need to report the classroom-based assessment grade descriptor home to parents as soon as possible after we do it. So all those second-year classroom-based assessments we spoke about and all those third-year classroom-based assessment grade descriptors we spoke about, we can't wait to include those in the JCPA as a standalone reporting mechanism. They must be reported home to parents in a formal manner, just like we would do with any summative test, such as a Christmas exam in our school. Decided as a school how you're going to send home the grade descriptor. So we need to communicate home in a written way formally the grade descriptor. Is it above expectations? Is it in line with expectations? And so on, once the SLAR process is complete. An example might be as part of the Christmas or summer written report, if these happen shortly after the completion of a given CBA. So I'd say not to need to look at these as necessarily building in another formal reporting point in the year, but how can we include the reporting on them into the formal reporting points we already have as a school? So whatever one of those happens next after a CBA, it's probably worth thinking about including them there, just to include it into what we already have. There are very good reporting guidelines available for schools. They've just been published this year in 2018. The guidelines on reporting, including examples of templates for use by schools, are available at the NCCA website. That link will work in the PowerPoint. They're in the assessment and reporting section. Again, if you just put into any internet search engine NCCA reporting guidelines, they will be easily found as well. So organising the administration of the assessment task and making the necessary arrangements to return the assessment task to the SEC is listed in the circular as one of the jobs for the person with management resource hours. So first of all, a note around the assessment task booklets. These will arrive in your school with on post from the State Examinations Commission. The English assessment task booklets should be in your school already. They're posted to every school in the country on Thursday, November the 29th. Business studies will arrive this week. So again, they should arrive by Friday, business studies. Science assessment task booklets won't arrive until next week. So science assessment task booklets will arrive the week commencing the 10th of December. In the box with the booklets is a very important circular letter containing all the information around storing the assessment task booklets, how do I return them, when do I return them, who signs what form do I use. That's all on that circular letter. So again, shouldn't really be a need to email or ring anybody, because once we read the circular letter, we should be very clear as to all of those questions around assessment task booklets. So be sure when you're taking out those booklets, sometimes the piece of paper can get lost. It's a very important circular letter with very important instructions on it. So this year, English, Science and Business will have assessment tasks. Sometimes the particular subject might require some stimulus material, such as a video clip, which has to be shown to the young people as part of the assessment task. And of course, the assessment task is run by the NCCA and the SEC together. And the stimulus material will be on the website curriculumonline.ie in the weeks prior to the assessment task. We need to log into the teacher section of the website to find the stimulus material. So it's important that teachers have made a My Account on Curriculum Online. There is a link in the PowerPoint, but again, if we log on to Curriculum Online, we'll see where we can make a My Account. And again, we'll need our Teaching Council number for that. Returning the assessment task booklets, the SEC, once again, outlined in the circular letter. Have a read of the circular letter. We'll have all that information for us. Circular Letter 79/2018 also tells us that your school will have received examination numbers last week. Should have came with that time when the English assessment task booklets did come out. The only reason you wouldn't have received them is if you were, maybe there was a delay in getting your October returns back through PPOD. That will have held up the process. So if you haven't received the examination numbers last week, they won't be coming to your particular school until February. So it's important you come up with a mechanism of keeping track of which assessment task booklet belongs to which child. Something I as a teacher would have done for years in junior certificate science. We always would have had our booklets weeks before exam numbers. I would have put a little post-it on the cover of the booklet with the child's name written on it. I throw the post-its in the bin when I get the exam numbers. So just some little system where you can link an assessment task booklet to the child until you get the examination numbers, if that is the case. And again, the latest date set in stone. Its latest date is when it must be done by. 22nd of March, that's it. Assessment task is over at that point. Okay, so looking then, when we have this information, when we have the CBA grade descriptors, they need to be uploaded to PPOD, the Post-Primary Online Database, to allow us to generate the Junior Cycle Profile of Achievement. There's a number of helpful guides on PPOD, and the link I've embedded again into this PowerPoint, but if we log on to the Post-Primary Online Database website, you'll see a whole section of guides for uploading of CBA grade descriptors. For last year's third year, most schools have this done months ago, but you can do it now if you haven't. And I'd say it is something to get done by next Monday if you're a little bit behind on it. Get those CBA grade descriptors uploaded onto PPOD. For everything around the JCPA Handbook, this was sent to schools last week by email, and it's a really good guide around everything we want to know around how we would produce a Junior Cycle Profile of Achievement. It was emailed to your school, to whatever email the school has registered on EasyNet. If you don't know what EasyNet is, you need to talk to your principal. They do. It's the portal they would use to communicate with the department through a certain email address. If you say to your principal that it came to the email address we have on EasyNet, they'll know very quickly what that means. I have a link here to it in the PowerPoint where you can find it on our own website, jct.ie also. Okay, so again, the handbook tells us how to make a JCPA. So we need to read that handbook to get answers to all our questions around making a Junior Cycle Profile of Achievement. It's all in there. For this year, however, as the technology to support data entry and JCPA production is in development, it is recognised there remains for this year a requirement to upload the classroom-based assessment grade descriptors onto PPOD. Somebody in our school needs to log into PPOD and upload the CBA grade descriptors. What has been made available is an administration grant to schools. So money has been made available where the principal can appoint a nominee who will upload these CBA grade descriptors, and they can get paid for it using the administration grant. Further details on this matter accompanied the handbook on the 30th of November. Okay. So just some, I suppose, relevant sections. Literally all I've done here is cut and paste. This is all in the handbook, and none of this is It's literally cut and paste. When will the JCPA be awarded to students? Schools are required to award the JCPA to all students in the week commencing Monday the 10th of December. So the partially completed JCPA won't be available to download until Monday. We then have 2 weeks to download it, get it finalised, print and distribute to students before the Christmas break. This bit I've underlined because it's so important. This has to be done before the Christmas break, they tell us, because the IT system used to produce the JCPA will not be available when we come back after the Christmas holidays. This has to happen before the Christmas break. So the other areas of learning. Again, the handbook gives us guidance on this. It's recommended that a school would include between 3 and 5 references to other areas of learning in this section for each student. Recommended. So again, what about the child who never attends? Well, of course, I'm going to maybe find it difficult to get 3 for them, but it's recommended for most children between 3 and 5. Of course, sometimes that's not possible. Again, autonomy for schools here. Considerable flexibility in deciding what information will be included in the other areas of learning, and of course how it may be gathered for inclusion in the JCPA. Page 12 is brilliant. It gives it 7 or 8 suggestions of how we might gather it. I'm sure there would be one there that might work for your own school. There's some brilliant suggestions around how that might happen on page 12 of the JCPA Handbook. And I would always say around gathering other areas of learning, probably is something in most schools that would happen during first, second and third year, not to be waiting until now to try and backfill the space of other areas of learning. That is something could be gathered during third year, and then it's a job done for now when we need to populate it, rather than trying to gather it off the students and populate it all in a very small window. Maybe to look at gathering it earlier, maybe during when the child is in third year. The suggestions are very good on page 12 of the handbook. Stefan earlier mentioned the limits and that it must be to a maximum of 150 words or 760 characters. You won't be able to type anymore when you hit the upper limit. So I suppose short and snappy would be a good idea, not to dwell on the point, because we'll run out of words and characters very quickly. I'm just showing this piece from the Junior Cycle Profile of Achievement, because I want to give a little bit around the signatures here of principal, of yearhead, and the school crest, which we see here from the fictitious Anytown school. So your school can have your own principal's signature, your third year yearhead signature, who was the yearhead when these young people were in third year, and your school crest. These can all be pre-populated on the JCPA. To make that happen, though, there's a number of things as a school we need to make sure we have done. Outlined on page 7 of the handbook. So how does the JCPA reflect the school identity? So in the case of mainstream post-primary schools, the school crest, the signature of the principal and the yearhead will appear on the JCPA if the department has them. So of course, if we don't provide them, we can decide not to have them if we don't want them, and we wouldn't provide them in that case. So in order for your school crest and signatures to appear on the JCPA issued by your school, you need to complete Appendix 2 attached to the JCPA Handbook. So if last year you submitted a principal's signature, a yearhead signature and a crest, and they are still valid, you don't need to do anything. If you might have a new principal, well then you need to send in a new principal signature. Your yearhead might change year on year, so you'll need to send in a new yearhead signature. Some schools up and down the country have renamed themselves and have a new crest. You'll need to send in that new crest to the department, or it'll have the old name of your school on it from last year. So again, I've just spoke a little bit about that there, but I've taken it from the handbook. So our yearhead for third year changes every year. Can we change the signature? Yes. The school can supply a new signature when needed. If you'd like to make changes to the crest or signatures, fill out Appendix 2, send it to jcpa@education.gov.ie. By today, they have said. I would imagine if you're unaware of this, get on it first thing in the morning or this evening, send the email and say, I've just sat in the webinar, I wasn't aware, is there any chance we could do it tomorrow, and see would they accommodate it to be done tomorrow. Please include your roll number and exam number in any correspondence. I included this here because I think it's something we can't reiterate enough around the privacy notice. We would have done this in our school last year. The privacy notice needs to be sent to every third year student. This will have to happen every year from now on. So again, it's something we can do at any time. Please don't wait until this time of year. I suppose it's more work for us if we haven't sent the privacy notice. Now we're trying to do that now as well. But it does need to be sent. Appendix 3, the template for the privacy notice, should be brought to the attention of parents or guardians. Basically, that needs to be printed out and sent home to every parent of the third year student before we can produce the JCPA, the privacy notice, again outlined on page 15 of the JCPA Handbook. Another interesting piece in this year's handbook is around the storing of the junior cycle profile of achievement. Again, Stefan alluded to this earlier from the questions you had been asking to us here tonight. We do need to save and store the JCPA. For how long? For 7 years after that child is 18. How do we store it? We can either do it in paper or electronically. Until 7 years, till age 25. So that is about a 10-year process in the context of GDPR as well. So that is important. We can do it electronically or by paper for 7 years after age 18. Again, where have I got that from? That's from Circular Letter 79/2018. So again, just included here because it is important, I think, to flag this here tonight as well. For any JCPA related queries, again, we probably as junior cycle for teachers, the people who design the workshops for teachers, don't have answers about making JCPA. I can do what I just did there, cut and paste stuff in the handbook, but if there's something beyond that, you really need to get onto the JCPA_help desk at education.gov.ie. That's PPOD themselves. They'll have all the answers relating to JCPA production. They're quite good at turning around an answer within 24 hours. So again, if you have a question right now about a JCPA, I'd get it off to them tonight. You'll get an answer tomorrow, most likely. We're often asked about informing parents. What can we do to inform parents? There is a job there, but I suppose ours, junior cycle for teachers, our role in all of this is to give information to teachers. Schools do have a role to inform their parents, but we can't go in and talk to your parents for you. It's not our role. We have put together some resources which you might like to use to talk to your parents. In the leadership section of jct.ie, if you click on the resources section and then on supporting parents, you'll find a very nice printable leaflet and also a PowerPoint presentation which you may use. It has a lot of slides in it. Again, it's not really, I suppose, something that you must follow from slide 1 to slide 100. It's something to download, delete slides that don't work for your school, add in slides that your own school might have that you could add to it. Use really whatever will benefit you in your school. It's not prescriptive at all. It's just a support if you might like to use it. So I suppose coming to the end now, we will be on the airwaves till about 7:30 answering your questions in a written format. But just to flag, if you are a Twitter user, to follow JCT for Teachers on Twitter, really good way of getting quick information regarding developments in junior cycle. To flag again our own website, jct.ie. And if you have any questions you'd like to email regarding anything tonight or at any time, we're always available, info@jct.ie, to have a look at anything we might have. So we're just going to pause and reflect here for one last time to look at questions we might have had for that last section of the webinar.
Good evening. My name is Tiernan O'Donnell, team leader for the Southwest region, and the questions are coming in and we're trying to get to them as quickly as possible. But a few common questions over the past while, maybe we can discuss online here. Now, the first was about the signature on the JCPA report itself, and the principal's signature has to be there, and the second signature, that's very much a school-based decision as to what signature goes down there, be it the year head, the deputy principal, but that's a school-based decision as to that second signature. Another question that's come up quite a lot is the dates for presenting students with the JCPA. Now, Circular 79 of 18 just refer to the fact that students should get their results, the JCPA, before Christmas. And the type of event that can take can be based upon, again, the school can decide what to do in that respect. A number of schools have events in the evening, during the day, invite parents in. But it's certainly a nice moment during the school year to celebrate student success. But again, that should take place before the Christmas break. And another question came up too about the management hours in relation to the person or persons that have that position. And those hours need to be given just to one individual teacher, but they can be split between two teachers or more. And again, that's a school-based decision. And they can also be bundled during the school year as well, depending again on the needs of inputting information or organising the JC junior cycle during the school year. I will keep you informed of any more questions that might come in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. That's the end of our, I suppose, broadcast. For the next half an hour, we will be typing answers to questions. So if you do have a question, please do type it in. We'll aim to get a response to everybody by 7:30. Thank you for joining us for the broadcasted part of this webinar. I do hope you found it useful and enjoy the rest of your evening.